Hey, CJ spoke to the media today, and it was a fun one. It was fun. There was good energy here. There were a few questions that CJ just didn't know how to respond or to react to, and understandably so. Let's start off with this one because it is relevant. We eventually get to it, but CJ confused by Aaron Wilson's question, as were many of us.
What are some of the things you see from Karlaftis and also Stone Cold have a follow-up?
Who?
What do you see from Karlaftis and Stone Cold Jones?
I don't know. That's what people call him.
Yeah, okay, so he's talking about Chris Jones, the defensive tackle. I vaguely remember that he's called Stone Cold. There's no way in hell if he was just referred to as Stone Cold that I would get it immediately.
That's what people call him? Oh, cool. Yeah, he's a heck of a player, man. He's a legend. He's a Hall of Famer guy. He's really good. Karlaftis, somebody I played against in college, played against last year. Had a really good game against last year. So, we got to be, really good up front. We know that every game, the better we establish the line of scrimmage, the better, we play as an offense. So.
Look, the Texans got George Karlaftis paid last year. Karlaftis went off against the Texans in the playoff game. We remember that very well. A couple differences will be, one, that Blake Fisher is not going to be starting at right tackle, barring some kind of cataclysmic injury or something. If Trent Brown got injured, I think we would move Titus Howard back out to right tackle before they would put Blake Fisher up against George Karlaftis. I would hope. Karlaftis is dealing with a hand. Chris Jones hasn't been the same this year, but I've had too many times in my life where I've watched Chris Jones for an entire game and think, they're handling him just fine, and then all of a sudden, tackle for loss, sack, whatever it is. This Texans offensive line, which we'll get to after one of these other questions, is better suited this year than they were last year for multiple issues that the Chiefs present, but it's certainly nothing to be taken lightly, obviously. Here is, we'll get the uncomfortable questions out of the way first. CJ had a couple questions about playing in cold weather. This might sound dumb at first, but it actually is a valid question.
Where players put on petroleum jelly or Vaseline on to keep warm when it's real cold. Did y'all have at Ohio State? Did y'all have any weird ways to keep warm, or even here when y'all go to the cold?
When I was at Ohio State, we weren't allowed to really do that type of stuff. But when you live in the cold, it doesn't make it when you're playing in it, it's kind of not as bad. And on the bench, you're fine because you have the the heaters. But the one thing that's hard is TV timeouts or just sitting out there is when it gets kind of colder, and then warm-ups is always hard. But once you get past that, it's kind of, and you're playing, it's kind of normal, as long as it's not, super windy. But I don't have any, and plus, I think it'll mess up my grip for the ball, so.
Yeah, okay, so the petroleum jelly. Now, back in the day, remember, there were I may or may not have participated in this, but back in the day, it was really common for players to put all kinds of substances on their shoulder pads or their arms and to make them slippery. But so petroleum jelly was a tricky one because you have to, as long as you put it on, but you rub it in pretty well, it's supposed to give you some kind of insulating effect. Sometimes people should put it on their lips when they travel up to New Jersey to see their sister over Thanksgiving, so they don't get cold sores. So it's got a protective element to it. But as far as it was cold, I got chapped. I didn't have any chapstick. But then also, people would spray silicone and everything on the jerseys, allegedly. But they banned that. They fined a bunch of guys. It was Chiefs. Chiefs players got caught and fined and perhaps suspended for it. I don't blame the Chiefs for it. We were all doing it, man. Everybody was doing it. I never inhaled. But I think it's not going to be so ridiculously cold or bitter cold that's going to be an element. CJ in the cold is interesting. If we look at going into last year, there were articles before that Chiefs playoff game about the fact that CJ had, at that point, going into a game which was going to be a cold game, he had played in the Ravens game in the playoffs where they lost 34-10. Stroud was 19 of 33 for 175 yards with 0 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. 2024 last year, Stroud went 23 of 39 with 2 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. The regular season game, I would say Stroud did some good things in that game. Once Tank Dell got injured, that was where things kind of went haywire and the performance dipped. And then last year, I never thought that the cold or anything was an issue, and I thought CJ was plenty accurate. It was just simply the pass protection in the fourth quarter fell apart. And I wouldn't have attributed any of those performances in cold weather. The fact of the matter is those are the 3 games where CJ's played in cold weather, and the Chiefs were the better team. And so there you have it. The Chiefs are when CJ has played in cold weather in the NFL against teams that are better than his team, he's lost those games. I'm not going to look too much into it. People point to the Northwestern game from when he was in college, and that was more about the wind. It was ridiculously windy on that day. So, and it's not, again, going to be ridiculously cold. This is on lessons that he's learned from playing the Chiefs before.
Like, Spags is a heck of a DC, somebody, who, knows what he's doing, knows how to get his guys in one-on-ones, and, messes with your protection rules and things like that. You got to just be alert for that type of stuff. And I just think, scoring in the red zone, scoring touchdowns is going to be big. That's every week. But I think even up there, we made it to the red zone a couple times and, didn't punch in 7. So I think that got to, be a goal of ours is to do that better. I think that some things that I can take from last year's game.
Yeah, the Texans have done some things better in the red zone as of late, but they are still 31st out of 32 teams in red zone touchdown scoring. So it's got to get better versus the Chiefs and everybody else. The difference in the way they're running the offense this year compared to last year was CJ having more command behind the line of scrimmage, more ability to perhaps adjust the play, adjust cover, adjust pass protection, and all of those things. If you think about it from the vantage point of the quarterback versus the center, and a lot of the things that the Chiefs are able to do, they disguise their blitzes really well. They show overload to one side, then switch to the other side. I can remember last year, I think it was whichever quarterback was really getting crushed for not anticipating something pre-snap. I think it was Josh Allen. There were a lot of people that went back and in slow motion and from a bird's eye view said, well, look, clearly it was obvious that he should have gone hot here or whatever it was. I watched it over and over again. The Texans, I don't think Tom Brady could have diagnosed some of the blitzes that the Chiefs were running last year in critical moments. They just did such a good job of fooling quarterbacks, centers, whoever it might be, that there's a certain element that's just left to chance. Dak Prescott last week had some good moments versus the blitz. He had some bad moments versus the blitz. But I think a lot of it is just, for one, playing the numbers game. Sometimes you're not going to get the protection right. And in those situations, how do you adapt and adjust to it? And the other is just getting things right pre-snap. CJ looked a little bit rusty last week in the first half. The second half, I thought it looked a lot better. The pre-snap execution from the offense last week was just atrocious. They can't get away with all these illegal formation penalties. But they're better equipped this year than they were last year. Let's go up to the O-line, because you guys asked a question about the O-line, and that's relevant to what we're talking about. CJ, on why the O-line has been able to improve this year.
A lot of talent, I would say, I guess. And, a lot of guys finally, getting the offense, getting the scheme. Got some guys who, have some experience up there. So just a multitude of those things. And, I think Tay's really settled in, knowing how he wants to play. And, how to play in the NFL is a little different than college. I think he's done a good job at that. And then, the rest of the guys have been solid all year, and plugging and playing. Titus, I think he's having a Pro Bowl year in every position he's been playing. And Big Trent coming in there doing his thing. And then, Ed, coming back off injury, doing really well up there, moving guys. It has some crazy blocks. And then, Jake, being super great with communication, and then, working to tail off each play to, get his job done. So I think it's a multitude of effort, talent, and then, experience. And I think that's why they're doing pretty good.
And I would credit Cole Popovich as well. I think if there's one thing that's been glaringly obvious, even as the offensive line isn't performing awesomely, whoever asked that question, I don't know who it was, framed it kind of, hey, how has the O-line been so good all year? And that has not been the case. The right side of the offensive line had been good while Titus Howard and Danny Grimm were there. It was everywhere else, from Ariante Ursary learning how to play in the NFL and taking his lumps in those first few games, to the left guard position, which was just an open tryout for the first half of the season. Neither of the guys who were trying out for that spot ended up being full-time starters, by the way. And then Jake Andrews coming along. They're a more fundamentally sound unit. There just aren't as many glaringly bad technique errors. The footwork is in unison. Guys, there's cohesion there. This is just, it's night and day from what it is now compared to then is night and day in just terms of simple execution. The individual play of guys like Ed Ingram has been awesome. I didn't expect this out of him. I didn't think Trent Brown. I would have bet, if I had to bet whether he played this year or not, I would have bet against it just because of his body weight and coming off a patellar tendon while he's entering his mid-30s. There was a lot working against him. So far, it's vastly improved. They still have a lot of improving to do. I would still say they're an average offensive line. The other thing that's helped them is that the Texans have been getting rid of the ball a lot faster. Both Davis Mills and C.J. Stroud. I know people were noting how quickly Davis Mills was getting rid of the ball. C.J. was getting rid of it at about the same, maybe a few hundredths or of a second or a tenth of a second slower than Davis Mills. But that's been one thing that's taken the level of difficulty down for the offensive line. It's also helped C.J. react and respond to the blitz and pressure as well. One of the questions was about how he's been able to, why he's been so good versus pressure. And I didn't have that in here actually, but my first answer to that would be his completion percentage is the highest it's ever been when being pressured. I think his ability to make quick decisions and get the ball out quickly has been a big difference. CJ went from being a guy that was probably in the lower third of the league, or the slowest third of the league in terms of time to throw. That's not inherently a bad thing, but it did lead to a lot of times where he's holding on to the ball when under duress or when under pressure. This offense this year has been the exact opposite. He's in the upper third to the upper quarter of how quickly he gets rid of the ball. This is a question from Brandon Scott, I think, on what they need to work on offensively now. Is it more about mastery of what they do, or refinement, or some new things? I'll let Brandon ask the question.
You mentioned after the game that Charlotte found y'all's identity offensively. Do you feel like there's anything that y'all are still trying to unlock offensively, or are y'all just trying to, at this point, master what you've already kind of found at this point?
I mean, probably both. Like, more so on the side of mastering what we're doing. But every week, you have game plan ideas, and you got to just try your best to execute at the highest level, because you're not going to get a bunch of practice reps at them, which is something I'm kind of used to, being in Coach Day's offense in college. But I think now, we're doing a little bit of both, which is really cool. So I think mastering what we've been doing is how you stay on the field, execution on third down, those type of things, is mastering the offense. So a little bit of both.
I would say immediately, in terms of improving what they're doing or introducing some of the new things, the tush push, I thought, hey, good. The Texans, after years of watching other teams take advantage of the rule that allows you to do the tush push, decided to try it 2/3 of the way through the season, and probably what is the last 2 months of the tush push's existence. It takes some work. The Eagles, in the way they do it, they have their O-line coached up and practiced and drilled better than anybody else. So it's not as simple as just, hey, we're going to run a tush push, and it always works. It's been proven time and time again that some teams are better at it than others. CJ had a good question from Cody Stutz here that had some fun with the tush push.
Did Cade ask you for any tips or advice on taking snaps?
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
Were you able to offer him some advice for that role in that situation?
What you think?
Is he a good student?
Yeah, I mean, I've been around Kay since I've been 18 years old, so like he listens to almost everything I tell him to do, and vice versa. Like, that's my brother, man. If he tells me to jump off the bridge, it's probably for a good reason, so I will go do it.
That's loyalty right there. That's something that, there you kids, that's what you tell your parents when you tell them when they pull that whole jumping off a bridge thing. The other thing that I liked a lot, I always think it was Big Sarge that asked Woody Marks, who's didn't practice today, by the way, so something to monitor. Asked Woody Marks about, that the end of the game there, and Woody Marks asked CJ whether he should go down if he had a breakout run. As quarterbacks are increasingly doing these days, when you've got a lead at the end of the game, go down, don't elongate the game anymore. I love that Woody Marks even bothered to ask that question. It's another sign of maturity out of a kid that's also really good in pass protection. And earlier in the year, I was saying he was good in pass protection by rookie running back standards because usually they suck at it. Woody Marks was way better than most rookies, and he's gotten better since then. So that's one of the most exciting things about Woody Marks is it opens up so much more versatility in an offense when the defense knows you've got a guy who can step back in there and pick up the blitz or go out on a route and be a receiving threat. If you got a guy back there in pass protection that you know is no good, then you just the defense knows more what to expect if they do blitz or if they play coverage, and they've got a pretty good idea that you're not going to rely on that running back. So him being able to pass protect makes him way more valuable than just the value of him as a runner or him as a receiver. The run pass predictability, it matters for that as well. And that was all we had for CJ. I'm excited about CJ this week, and I know that he started off rusty, as he himself said last week. I felt way better about it after that first touchdown drive. Some of the execution errors I don't put on him in terms of the formation things. Look. Whether you could argue that maybe Davis was executing some of the pre-snap motions and everything better. Davis had to take a timeout to avoid a delay of game at one point. It wasn't perfect. So the sum total of it is that by the second half, things were humming and CJ was looking, in terms of operationally, the entire operation, not just the accuracy of his passes or anything. I thought a lot more comfortable. The first half, I thought he looked uncomfortable in the pocket. It looked like he was consciously forcing himself to do the right thing in the pocket. And I know he still made a couple decisions that may have made sacks worse or, bailed out of the back of the pocket or sideways. But there was also instances of stepping up, finding Dalton Schultz. And I think this week it's going to be a tough environment, not because of the cold, but because Arrowhead is freaking loud. I would say, I think the Seahawks is the loudest outdoor stadium I ever played in. The Chiefs it's loud, but it's also kind of cool because when you look up, it's an old stadium and it just looks like a wall of red, like you're playing the People's Republic of China or something, or the Ruskies back in the day, which is fun. You get to pretend you're in the Cold War. As a child of the Cold War, I appreciated any chance I had to kill a Russian.